He is already providing infrastructure for the 3 camps that are being set up in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. He has also set up a feeding station for refugees near the border at Brazda. And he has reported to us this morning that the urgent requirement is for about 1 million ready-to-eat military meals, blankets for 187,000, and 200,000 litres of water. And many NATO countries are now in the process of delivering that aid through setting up a humanitarian air bridge into Skopje. Also today, the Council has asked the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, General Clark, to establish immediately a forward headquarters in Albania to help provide direct military support to the Albanian government and to the relief organisations operating at the border in northern Albania. We are looking at using one of our CJTFs, as we say in the NATO jargon, one of our combined joint task forces. In other words, one of our permanently mobilisable tri-service headquarters to be able to take on this task.
And they're leaving. If it was hell on earth for them as they were ordered from their homes and herded onto trains and forced at gunpoint to walk over the border, it's no better here, penned in by Macedonian combat troops and policemen who display little sympathy for their plight. Most shelter these people can erect against the cold and the rain is of their own making. They're receiving little aid. The British Army offered to erect a kitchen, but they were asked not to, close to the field, in case it provoked the Serbs just across the border. Their soldiers appeared at one point on a ridge above the camp, probably a calculated display intended to further intimidate the refugees. Some of them have been out in the open now for 4 days. Human beings are being born here and they are dying here. 2 small medical tents just can't cope with the sick, and even when they are treated, they're immediately sent back into the squalor, where there's a real danger of disease taking hold to join the hypothermia and hunger.
Whatever may be being said elsewhere, the right sort of aid and enough of it is not getting through to these people. Unofficially, the aid agencies blame the Macedonian government for not being cooperative enough. The Macedonian government blames NATO for inflicting this upon them. And meanwhile, these people are existing in conditions that are not fit for a pig. Keith Graves, Sky News on the Kosovo-Macedonian border.
Well, the situation in Albania is no better, and NATO has now directed the Supreme Allied Commander, General Wesley Clark, to set up a headquarters in Albania for some 6,000, possibly 10,000 troops to speed up and protect the delivery of aid to the ethnic Albanian refugees. Well, Sky's Ross Appleyard is at the Albanian frontier with Kosovo.
The queue of refugees trying to get into Albania stretches back 20 kilometers. The last hurdle is to get through the Serb checkpoint, guarded heavily by troops. Here, the police regularly dish out a final beating as they pass. The surrounding hills occasionally echo to the sound of artillery fire. Reports here suggest the Serbs are firing on Albanian villages in an effort to speed up the exodus of the Kosovo nation.
Could be just sheer intimidation of the local villagers living there, or it could be, as my boss just said, to speed up things here in this area, to intimidate people, scare them, just to show that they are strong and they're powerful.
The aid agencies are running out of supplies. Some tents have been set up to shelter people from the cold, but there's nowhere near enough. 12 people have died here in the last week, many from exposure. But amidst the chaos came some good news at last.
NATO are coming across with a major aid and relief. They're coming in with helicopters with aid and assistance, and those helicopters will take out refugees. So I think the international community is very alert to what's happening. The problem is that the influx is so great that it's very difficult to keep abreast with it.
The airlift will help ease the pressure on these beaten and shocked people. But it will have to be on an unprecedented scale to make an impact on this massive problem. Albania's First Lady came to see the disaster for herself and was shocked at what she saw.
The most terrible scenes had been in hospital, where she had saw with her own eyes the people injured, shocked children, shocked mothers, and there had been a baby bed cracked down by police forces.
The news that an airlift is on the way will raise the hopes of the aid agencies that at last they'll be able to make some headway against a problem which shows no sign of going away. Still they come pouring through the border, but to an uncertain future. The Albanians have made an almighty effort to look after these people, but now they desperately need help from the outside before refugees start dying in large numbers, not from Serb guns and artillery, but from hunger and disease. Ross Appleyard, Sky News, on the Kosovo-Albanian border.
Britain has pledged another £10 million of aid for the refugees as the relief effort across Europe gathers pace. Germany is the latest country to say it's ready to take in refugees, and Dublin has pledged £2 million Irish pounds.
Good morning, thank you for calling Christian Aid. My name is Jo, how can I help you?
Every time the phone rings, it's money that will save lives. This centre in Bristol is taking about 400 calls a day. Modest perhaps, but the charities say the TV campaign, which starts Tuesday, will dramatically boost the response.
Every time there's an ad that goes out on the radio, we have a bit of a flush of responses from people, but it's been slow and steady all day today and yesterday.
Britain today doubled its commitment to £20 million, Ireland to £1.6 million. That on top of £8.5 million from Europe, £9 million from Japan, £32.5 from the United States, £3.6 from Greece and £900,000 from Finland. Another plane arrives carrying food, this one from Poland. Airports in Albania and Macedonia have never seen this volume of traffic.
We admire greatly what Albania is doing to cope with what we realize is an extraordinarily serious and dangerous situation.
Humanitarian groups admit they were caught by surprise. The crush of desperate people swamped these cities with no walls that were set up in advance of the exodus.
We were not ready for this. We were just totally overwhelmed, as were the local infrastructure and facilities. We are getting onto the job.
There's not enough staff on the ground to prepare food and distribute supplies like these that were dispatched overnight. British firms have donated blankets and sanitary products, including nappies, and loads of food are being flown in daily. The UNHCR warns the tiny, poor countries that border Kosovo can't resettle 250,000 people. While Germany says as a temporary measure it's ready to take more refugees, Britain says most will eventually have to go home.
And the long-term future for those refugees must be to be able to return to their homes in Kosovo and to rebuild Kosovo.
The work of aid agencies both here and in the Balkans is a long way from over. Joanne Shoebridge, Sky News.
Well, in Belgrade, President Milosevic says that the NATO raids will not break the spirit of his people or the city. Here, the Ministry of Defence says that Britain
delivered a message from NATO that it can hit when, where and how it wants. Stunned citizens gathered today. They gazed at the ruins, wondering what is next. Most were silent, some in tears. At 3 minutes to 1 a.m. local, at least 2 missiles struck the federal Yugoslav and Serbian interior ministries. Fire quickly tore through the buildings. The emergency services could not even attempt to save the ministries, just prevent the fire spreading to adjacent apartment blocks and a maternity hospital. There, mothers and newborn babies were taken to the air raid shelters. Hospital staff were furious at the attack, asking what would have happened if the bombs had been slightly off target.
We've heard 3 detonations very near hospital.